What's up, my beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of See It Through My Eyes. I'm Richie here with my cameraman, my cousin Chewy, Jesus.
Hi.
Today we are going to be reacting to a pretty viral video that's been going around, at least for anybody who follows pro wrestling, specifically WWE. So yeah, if you're not into that, go check out one of our other videos. But for anybody who's interested in wrestling, pro wrestling, WWE shit, all that, I think you guys will find this interesting, and most likely some of you have probably already heard of this. It's an interesting topic that I do want to discuss a little bit later on, a specific point. But we are going to be reacting to the whole Swerve Strickland and Booker T controversy that's been happening. So pretty much, it was a clip on what is it called, Vlad TV, I think.
Yeah.
It was an interview that Vlad TV was having. I don't know the guy. Vlad TV was having with Swerve Strickland from AEW, the rival company of WWE, where he pretty much was discussing the controversy that he believes that Booker T, being a African American pro wrestler in WWE, hadn't stood up against specifically one clip, which I will be also sharing, of Vince McMahon saying the N-word to John Cena, while both Booker T and his wife were standing by, but also touching on how WWE hasn't given those opportunities specifically to African American pro wrestlers. And we are going to be reacting to a clip from the Booker T podcast where he responds pretty much to Swerve Strickland's claims, and we'll be giving our opinion. So with that being said, let's get right into the clip.
Well, you said the WWE doesn't treat black wrestlers fair.
I don't think they market the value as fair.
Okay.
I don't think they market anybody's value as fair, really.
Well, your friend Booker T actually responded to you saying that.
Mm-hmm.
He said, look at the black talent in WWE right now, like Bianca Belair, Obafemi, The New Day. The New Day has won more tag team championships than anybody. Bianca Belair, she's headline at WrestleMania. Obafemi's a young guy out of college, is doing big things at NXT. I'm just trying to figure out what he's talking about. So I'm just trying to figure out if it's something that's happened to him personally, as far as him not getting the push that he wanted in WWE. He felt like perhaps he should have been a bigger star in WWE. And the thing is, sometimes things just don't work out. I hate that we're still talking about this race thing as far as, what WWE is doing with black folks. And I say that with all sincerity because I'm black. I've been working for the company for a long time, and I know I've been treated fair for the last 20 years.
That's not what happened when Vince said the N-word in front of you. That's not being treated fair. My opinion. And to that statement, it's not even what I'm saying. I'm saying what people are saying. I'm saying what your audience is saying. So it's not just me just talking out of my ass out of nowhere. It's what your audience has been complaining about for the better part of like 2-3 years from not seeing black talent getting single matches on PLEs and stuff like that.
And we will be including in the description, the name of the video is called Booker T Sets the Record Straight on Swerve Strickland, and the original channel is Reality of Wrestling. So please go check that out. Check out the original video that we will be also including in the description. And yeah, let's get right into it.
So he was referring to a time on the show where there was some questions about Swerve Strickland, and did AEW overpay for him? WWE thought they paid him over market value, and Swerve, I think, was on the Breakfast Club and was discussing his WWE run and lack thereof, and I believe you said something regarding I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about. I'm black, so I'm just trying to understand if something happened to him personally. Maybe he should have thought he should have been a bigger star in the WWE. I hate we're still talking about this race thing. I've been working for the company for a long time, and I know I've been treated fairly for 20 years.
Verbatim,
so that was
verbatim. That's exactly what I said. And I don't think you're going to find anything in that statement right there negative towards Strickland.
Well, you know what? Let's give some more context.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me play some more context, because Swerve Strickland actually did make history in AEW as becoming the first black AEW champion. We discussed that on the show, and here was your reaction to that.
I can't show y'all the next clip due to copyright, but Booker T is referring to the time when Swerve won the AEW World Championship, and that would make him the first black AEW World Heavyweight Champion in that company. He goes on to give him praise for his work ethic and how far he's come, and that also led to what was being said next.
That was what you said
Wow.
regarding Swerve's
That's,
world
that-
title win.
that's high praise right there. I mean, and you know what? I don't like. Like I said, I was at an event this weekend. I was at an event this weekend in Richmond, Virginia, and lo and behold, who was at the same event with me, actually as a part of the same party. It was literally the first person I run into the morning of the event. And just like Swerve Strickland said, me having the energy when Vince McMahon said the N word. I rest assured I had the energy when I saw him because I approached Swerve Strickland and I had a conversation with Swerve Strickland. Let's talk about the conversation in depth as far as what I told Swerve Strickland. I had an offer to be on Vlad TV before as well, and I turned it down. And they called me back and they offered me money to go on Vlad TV, and I turned it down because I was not going to go on Vlad TV and be exploited. I wasn't going to go on on Vlad TV and him make me look like a fool in front of the world. I was not going to do that. And I wasn't going to go on Vlad TV and say anything negative towards any black man that's ever been in this business because I know how hard it is for all of them. And I've been the first one to say any brother getting his bag, I'm all in 100%. But I told Swerve Strickland to his face how disappointed I am in him as a young brother because all I did for Swerve Strickland ever was put him over and put him on a pedestal as being one of the best out there that ever did it. He deserved being the AEW champion. And for him to say something like that about me, I don't know if these guys think racism stopped in 1990 when I got in the business, but it didn't. Okay, you may not hear about a lot of racial issues with Booker T because I handled racial issues head first. I opened doors. I broke down barriers for people like Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland perhaps would not even be here if it wasn't for me. I have to apologize for nothing that I've done in this business because I've gone out there and literally represented in the ring, out of the ring, from day one all the way to this day in 2025. Okay, you speak on Vince McMahon and him saying the N-word. You want me to be angry black man in the company. You want me to not open doors and make, spaces for people like you. That's what you want me to do. Swerve Strickland, I hope you're never going to be in the movies. I hope you're never going to be on a movie set because you might hear somebody say the N-word. And if you got a problem with it, they're going to tell your ass to get the hell out of here because this is a movie, all right? And I'm upset. I'm upset because more importantly, I'm disappointed at Swerve Strickland because what I told him, and I'll repeat it, just like I repeated it to him. You got played.
So just for anybody who hasn't watched the clip that Swerve Strickland was referring to about Mr. McMahon saying the N-word to John Cena in front of both Booker T and his wife on live TV, quick, just in case, you can go check it out on YouTube, but we're going to try to include it here. Here's the clip of that. So just in case WWE takes down this clip, so basically for anybody who hasn't watched it, go check it out on YouTube. But basically what happens, John Cena and Mr. McMahon run into each other backstage and they shake off. This is around the time John Cena is going through his white gangster gimmick. John Cena says, "What's up, boss?" Mr. McMahon says, what's good in the hood?" John Cena is so corny. John Cena says, "Just keeping it down, taking care of business." Vince McMahon says the N-word. Passes by Booker T and his wife Charmel says, "Booker, Charmel." Booker then looks at the camera and says, "Tell me he didn't just say that." So pretty yeah, cringe clip, but just a little, giving a little bit of context to anybody who hasn't seen that clip. Like I said, go check that out in case we get it taken down. Also, if they do take down the other clip, because there was a part where Booker T is giving props to Swerve Strickland for winning his AEW championship, but in the background as he's talking, he's playing Bad Bunny songs. So in case that's also copyrighted, you can go check that out. Reality of Wrestling. The Booker T responding to the situation with Swerve Strickland. So with that being said, Jesus, give me your take. What do you think?
So there's a part of me that wants to say, like, because he didn't say it to Booker T, right? And he said it to John Cena, who was another white guy. And it's also a comedy segment. Like, it's not meant to be taken seriously. I think definitely you could argue that it is definitely problematic that he decided to say that in that specific sense. But again, I don't think it's meant to be taken like that seriously.
No.
You know? So it's a comedy segment. It's a very bad one, but yeah, it's a comedy segment at the end of the day.
So we're not black. Shocker. Me and Jesus are Hispanic. So obviously we can't say who can and can't say the N-word.
Right?
And who has and doesn't have the past. That's not for us to speak on.
Mm-hmm.
I think in this case, it's to laugh at the stupidity. You know, it's supposed to be like Vince McMahon, this, you know, racist white billionaire, you know, sees a white rapper, white gangster, John Cena over here, thinks he's hood, and you know he's trying to be this, like, you know, hood basically, and just but it's offensive. Nevertheless, it's offensive. I can't tell anybody not to feel offended because, like I said, that's not our place to say. I think there's two parts of Swerve Strickland's argument that I kind of want to divide it into. And one of them is his argument, and what it seemed like it was his initial argument about WWE not giving those opportunities to black pro wrestlers, which I think it's gotten better. Back in the day, like you hardly saw any black wrestlers be champion, and if you did, it was like very far apart. I think at least I started watching WWE in 2004. When did you start, Jesus?
It's the same year in the summer.
So our first exposure, or at least mine, was Booker T when he became King Booker. And, you know, he became the world champion. And we were told that he was a five-time WCW world champion. But, you know, I never watched WCW. So to me, my exposure as the first black African-American, whatever, pro wrestler was Booker T. And then after that, I think Bobby Lashley and I want to say, what was it, Big Daddy V and Mark Henry took turns of being ECW champions. Yep. But the washed down version of ECW, so the championships really didn't matter. What do you think about that argument? Do you feel that WWE till this day still doesn't give those main event opportunities?
The thing is, it's hard to say because it's not like you could make the argument, but I think there would be a lot of flaws in that argument, especially looking at the main roster, right? Sure, you could argue that because a lot of the black male superstars have not gotten their matches on pay-per-views like the last few like months. But then you look at a place where like it's NXT, and then you see acts like Javon Evans, Trick Williams, Obafemi, who are all African American or / Nigerian too, and they're all in the main event. They're all main eventing cards. They're literally about to have a triple threat match, where they probably had the triple threat match already, depending on when I uploaded this. There's other acts like you could look at like AEW, for example, with like Swerve himself too. The Hurt Syndicate over there, they're doing great things. I don't think it's like limited. I do think that there are several opportunities going around and stuff like that. It's just a shame that we can't get more opportunities for the black male superstars on the main roster. Because like we've had a lot of opportunities for like Bianca, Jade, and Naomi, where like they've been main eventing, they've been tag team champions.
Mm.
So it's like I don't think it's like 100% like
Yeah.
oh it's racism. No one's getting an equal opportunity. I do think that there are opportunities. You just gotta like look.
I think I agree with what you're saying. I think that it's both arguments are true, because I do think that there are more opportunities, especially now in pro wrestling, whether it's WWE or AEW, specifically WWE. But that's only because I've watched more WWE than AEW. On the main roster, SmackDown and Raw, yeah, the last few years you've seen a little bit more representation. Bobby Lashley, Big E, Kofi Kingston. Now, whether or not their runs as champions at the top were meaningful, that's a whole different argument. I know there's a controversy with the way that Kofi Kingston lost his championship to Brock Lesnar in a few seconds, and then after that, like Kofi never touched gold again, or at least not main event gold. And pretty much we all forgot that he was champion. But I think there's more factors to it than just, it's because they're black. Obviously being Hispanics, like I've also been a big fan of Mexican lucha libre, both AAA and CML. You and me have both, not together, but we've watched Lucha Underground also. So we've also have seen how Mexican wrestlers in WWE have been treated. Whether it's they're pretty much just put all with each other to fight among each other, or they're put in the middle leagues, in the mid cards, or they're given, especially back in the day, the Mexicals, Eddie Guerrero given. I love Eddie Guerrero, but just had to amp up the accent and the lychee and steel. And even though they were memorable, you can argue that it was racist. I mean, for sakes, you have Mexicans coming out on lawnmowers.
I do think that it's very limited in WWE, but I do think that there are places that do push people of other ethnicities and like of other backgrounds like really, really well. And I think it's just a matter of like looking elsewhere if you want to see someone else like succeed.
So the other part that I kind of want to touch on is the part where he says about Booker T not having the energy for Vince McMahon saying the N-word in front of him, or pretty much like calling out the racism that, like back in the day you had DX coming out with blackface, or Goldust or Rowdy Piper coming out in blackface. And, a lot of the time it was literally in front of black wrestlers, and why, none of that was said. I do want to get your point, something that I kind of want to first get out of my chest. We also have to look at the times. And I'm glad that Booker T, because when he first kind of touched on it, I felt that he kind of missed the point, but then he did eventually get back to it when Booker T was saying that he ran into Swerve Strickland, and he was saying, the energy that he wanted me to have for Vince McMahon, I had it for him. And it's like, yeah, but he's arguing, why didn't you have that same energy for Vince McMahon? But I think he explained it pretty well when Booker T was talking about how, if you're on a movie set and so it's in the script, a character is supposed to say an N-word, or is supposed to make a racist or out of touch statement, that's basically what it is. It's not supposed to be looked at or tolerated or like it was back in the day, laughed at. It's supposed to be laughed at as in the sense of like, oh my God, look how stupid or ignorant the person is. And I feel like it's a good point to make, especially because back in the day, because you didn't have much of that representation of, certain minority groups in pro wrestling, or just any type of media, you didn't also have a lot of tolerance or a lot of support when it came to standing up and saying, hey, that's racist. You get me? Like if you wanted an opportunity, unfortunately, you would have to stay quiet, or you have to go with whatever you were saying. And as Booker T, said, if it wasn't for him, opening up the doors for a lot of now black wrestlers who have more opportunities than they did back then, I think it's a little bit narrow-minded to look back and say, well, now, that's not tolerated. Why didn't you do something back then? Well, hindsight, what's the saying? Hindsight is 2020, and you're speaking honestly from an entitled mindset, in my opinion, because we are less tolerant of racism nowadays. There's way more support when it comes to canceling, calling out people, and holding people responsible when they say ignorant shit like that, more than it was back then. Back then, a lot of stuff was okay, dropping the F word, dropping the N word, dropping the R word, making R word, jokes. A lot of stuff was okay because I don't know if it wasn't just understood, and this was a little bit beyond our time. We were still kids. But it was okay, at least back then. It wasn't seen as this big thing as it is now. And I think both arguments are valid. I just think that it's kind of how like when older generations, whether it's in wrestling or music or whatever, older generations start criticizing about how the nowadays music or the nowadays generation are this, and this and that. And it's like, there is that generation split, that divide. And there is that bias that you had at that time. And Swerve Strickland is coming from the bias of being the modern generation black wrestler, talking about something that happened in the past that he was not part of. So he doesn't know what was going on in WWE. He doesn't know how things were behind the scenes. We all were just seeing what was happening, what was being fed to us. But we don't know what Booker T or Mark Henry, The Rock, Farouk, or all these black wrestlers, or any wrestler that was a minority or marginalized group had to go through. So to say and criticize and you should have done more, it does come off as offensive because you're not even giving that gratitude and respect to the people who did pave the way for a lot of you wrestlers nowadays.
Also, it's like you weren't there, so you never know. Like, how do you know that they didn't say anything? Because that's his whole point, no? Like that he didn't say anything, and it's like you have the energy for me, but like you won't have the energy for Vince, which in a way I guess Swerve is right. Booker T does have the energy for you, but not Vince. But also Booker's telling him that, hey, that's what Vlad is trying to do. He's trying to pin us against each other, and that's not something that we should fall into.
No. So as of April of 2025, updates into the whole controversy. There was a segment on AEW. I think it was a pay-per-view. I don't know. I don't watch AEW,
yeah,
so
we can't show that.
No, we're not gonna watch show. But we're saying there was
we can't show that.
There was a championship match where Swerve Strickland lost a championship, I believe, to John Moxley, right?
No, John Moxley is the champion.
Oh, okay.
So he was defending against Swerve, and Swerve lost.
Yeah. Interference by the Young Bucks, if anybody knows that. But off camera, Swerve Strickland pretty much just said, fuck Booker T. That went viral. Vlad TV was also going back and forth with Booker T. And that has become a whole thing. Booker T, at least as for the Swerve Strickland stuff, has chosen to kind of just not respond directly to him. And my opinion about that, I mean, I think there's some truth to everything, and the whole Vlad TV bullshit. I don't really know too much about that, so I'm not really gonna comment on anything. But one thing that did piss me off on Swerve Strickland's part, the same shit that you accused Booker T, not having that energy for Vince McMahon. Why didn't you have the same energy to say fuck you to Booker T, man to man, face to face, when you saw him in person? Why off the camera, when Booker T is nowhere to be found, you said this shit? And for what reason? You could have said, I disagree with whatever his argument was, but to just, oh, fuck you, Booker T, and, blah, 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 and go on this whole rant, to me just comes off as just so disrespectful. And that's not what a man does. Because that just kind of shows that you're a fucking bitch, bro. Like, you're just looking for attention at this point. You wanted to tag a famous black wrestler, and I'm gonna just call it Booker T compared to Swerve Strickland. A lot of people know Booker T. Not too many people outside of wrestling know Swerve Strickland. I hardly know the mother. I just know him because he was in WWE, and I knew little, and it wasn't until I started hearing about that he was like the first black wrestler in AEW to win championship, but not like I watch his matches. So I don't know. I just think that that's just it's disrespectful, and it's just you're being an attention whore at this point because you didn't have that energy for the man to tell him straight to his face if whether you agree or disagree with whatever he said. He told you straight to your face. Why the bullshit now? So that's my opinion. You got anything else to add?
Honestly, no, I don't. I mean, if these two meet in the ring again, it'll be pretty interesting to see. But other than that, nah, I'm good.
So hopefully you guys like this video. To anybody who watches pro wrestling, follows pro wrestling, or at least knows of Booker T, I'm a mainstream casual fan of WWE, so I can't pretend like I'm into all this pro wrestling like I was when I was younger. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy that because it's a conversation that applies to many different aspects of our society when it comes to the generation divide and the judgment and the biases and just how we're all pinned against each other. And instead of trying to understand or see the other person's point of view, we just get upset and we throw our little fits or we make our comments without even thinking things through.
I do think that I do have one more thing to say. I'm sorry. I do think that the older generation has a much better time with just not letting things get to them.
Yeah.
Where it's like the younger generation feels like they do have to say something, and in some cases I do applaud them for standing up for themselves because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, like we've seen like actresses stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes sure, like they might lose their jobs, but in the end, like they still have integrity.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a 50-50 split.
Yeah. I agree. Sometimes me being a Hispanic, I always stand up for, somebody calls me a wetbag, you're gonna get blocked or you curse the out or knock the out. So you do have to stand up at some point for your culture. But there's also something in our society that's getting more and more and more where people get offended for every little thing. Life is too short, guys, and there's more important things going on that actually does affect us, and there's things that we need to fix and work on in our culture. To be worrying about and getting upset about every little thing, especially when we're just throwing our racist word around and devaluing it and calling everything and everybody racist just because they offend us or we don't agree with what they're saying. Like, let's try to think a little bit more thoroughly what we're doing and what we're saying before we make comments and open up our mouths and just put ourselves out there. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this. Please tune in next time. Go check out the original videos. I'm Richie here with my cousin Jesus. Hope you guys are taking care. Subscribe, like, share, download, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.